And yeah, and then about like a year ago, a friend of mine was like, I've always wanted to do one. Like, I'm going to try this out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back into it with you and we can train together. And so she got me back into the sport.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you got a bike and all that?
Yeah.
Is it a nice one?
I mean, no.
They're so fucking expensive.
Exactly.
Dude.
I just bought a new bike, but I was like, when I went into the shop, I was like, listen, I am not your like hardcore, like crazy triathlete. Like I do this for fun. Yeah. And I'm not looking to spend $6,000 on a bicycle.
I don't need anything freaking crazy.
Right. So I'm like, what can I do with like $1,000?
He was like, you can turn around and leave.
Exactly. Yeah, no. But I wound up finding, I found a brand new bike. I think it was just like maybe last year's model.
Nice.
Road bike within my budget, and it had all the components I was looking for. And I was like, great, because I'm going to ride.
Where'd you buy it?
Some website called Bike Exchange.
Really?
I was just doing a lot of Googling. Yeah.
Dude, I gotta get it. I gotta get on that site because after we did the triathlon, I was like, all right, this is pretty fun. Like it'd be nice to, on Saturdays to go out for like a long bike ride. Yeah, you know?
We do. Yeah, the National Tri Club does them every Saturday. We do long rides.
Really?
Yeah, Notches Trace.
Yeah,
we
gorgeous.
ride around like Brentwood, Franklin area. So I
hope I could keep up. That's the worry there.
Oh, I'm not a fast bicyclist.
Okay, all right, good.
Swimming is my background. So
really?
I am a fast swimmer. I am not fast at anything else.
Did you grow up swimming?
Yes.
A high school swimmer and stuff?
Yep, high school and played water polo and.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Those seem to be the best triathletes because swimming, I think, is by far the hardest thing to get really good at. Yeah. You can survive. I mean, I can swim well, but like I need to train for like a year if I want to do a mile swim. Yeah. You know, but you could pick that up very quickly. Mm-hmm. You could probably do that right now.
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's the difference.
Twice a week.
Yeah. There you go. I would literally die if I tried to do a mile run.
It's the hardest part for sure, but it's also the shortest part of the race. Right. So what sucks for me is like I'll come out ahead in the swim and then I get passed in the bike and the run. Right. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. On the one we did, it was like I was in the water. It was in the Cumberland, so we were with the current. Yes. I was in the water for like 3 minutes. So I did that one in 2018. Okay, nice. And it goes fast, doesn't it? 3 minutes. I was like, oh, sweet. Killing this. Yeah. Like, and then the bike. Swimmer. So we decided to do this on a Monday, and the race was on a Sunday. So it was like, we had like 5 days. Didn't run, didn't do anything. Went and rented the bike on Saturday. Me and my wife, we rented bikes from like the bike shop in Brentwood. They were nice Cannondales, good bikes. Yeah. But I'd never ridden a bike for that long before. And I've never ridden a bike that had like these types of gears. Yeah. Until we were literally racing. Yeah. And then my biggest shock was getting off of the bike. My legs I was like, oh my God. Jello. Yeah. Yeah. And it didn't feel like that when I was riding. I was like, I'm not, reaching exhaustion. Right. Because we also didn't do it very quickly. But as soon as I got the bike, I was like, oh my God, this run is going to suck. Yeah. So I can't imagine the guys that are doing, what's a full, like, 100-something mile bike ride? Like the Ironman? Yeah. Yeah. Like 112 or something? Something like that. I have no ambition to do those. Yeah. So like that's too much. Yeah. It's mostly also the running at the end. Like I have no desire to run a marathon. A marathon at the end of a 112-mile bike ride almost seems impossible. And yes, in my opinion, boring as shit. Yes. Road running to me is very boring. Yeah. I've done like a 50K trail run before. Okay. And like that was cool because you have to stay focused on not dying and, you're spraining your ankle. Right. That's what I'm worried about on trail runs. Exactly. Yeah. And like that to me makes the time go by a little bit quicker. Yeah. But just running on the street is to me, I can't think of anything more boring in my opinion. Yeah. Well, and it's so bad on your joints and everything. Yep. Like that's why I can't go much farther than probably like a 10K because I've had surgery on both my knees. My hips are getting bad. I'm just like, I'm not built for running. So how far do you guys ride on Saturdays? They give options. The serious group, they usually ride about anywhere from like 50 to 60 miles. I ride like 25 miles. That's about where I'd be. Yeah. And it would be the longest ride of my life. Yeah. And I'm not super fast.
I'm with a group. We ride on Thursday nights too, and we call ourselves 11 Smiles Per Hour.
So shout out 11 Smiles Per Hour.
Yeah.
So good.
So
I need to be with 11 Smiles Per Hour.
Yeah.
That's about, honestly, that's, I think, the exact pace that we did, 11 miles per hour.
Right.
During the triathlon.
Yeah, usually what I average on these rides. So
all right. So
11, 12, somewhere around there.
Right on. We're in it for the good times. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then do y'all go like lunch or something afterwards, hang out?
Yeah. So the Thursday night rides are very social. And my friend Chris, he actually started that. I can't take credit for any of that. But those are very social. So afterwards, ML Rose actually just started kind of like unofficially sponsoring this ride. And so they've been going to ML Rose afterwards and grabbing drinks and dinner. And so that's Thursday night. And then on Saturdays, it kind of depends, on the ride. The Natchez Trace one, everybody's kind of doing their own thing because it's just out and back.
Yeah.
But then when we do more planned rides through neighborhoods, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll stop along the way at like a coffee shop or something and kind of hang out as a group, kind of, regroup, rest a little bit before we get back on the bikes. Yeah.
That's so cool. I also have to tell, so my brother-in-law, Andrew, he works with MyHome as well. And he rides pretty much every weekend, but he doesn't have a group to ride with.
Okay.
So before you leave today, I'll introduce you to Andrew, and he would love to get involved with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I got to find me a cheaper bike, and then I can get involved too.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was riding on like a $50 bike I bought during the pandemic from a friend.
Nice.
And that I was struggling to like keep up with everyone.
It makes a huge difference.
And so that's why I invested in a new bike this year, and just I have more gears now. And that has made a huge difference.
When we were doing our race, I remember I was on the bike and I was just like dying. And I hear this sound coming from behind me. So they shut down, what is it, Ellington? Mm-hmm. They shut down Ellington. And I hear this sound coming from me that sounded like a car. I was like, who the fuck? Who's driving? And it was just this obviously really good dude who has this expensive bike.
Right.
He was going maybe 40 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like cruising at like a 12, 13.
Right.
And it sounded like a car was coming behind me. It was incredible.
I know that sound.
I was like, what the
like, wow.
You're going to love this transition. I imagine that the being a realtor, that these groups on Thursday, Saturday is actually probably pretty good networking for you too. Yeah,
it can be. I mean, a lot of times we aren't talking a whole lot.
Right.
Since we're pretty intense.
Yeah. You're just like, I'm a realtor.
Yeah. So if it comes up in conversation, it's great. But I never make that the focus of my conversations.
Well, that's good networking.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
They just know, like, and trust, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, just trying to get out and meet more people. And these groups have definitely been great for that.
Where are you from originally?
Chicago.
Yeah. So I saw I have my opinions on Chicago mainly because everybody talks shit about it, right? But I saw this like Instagram reel the other day, and it was talking exactly the opposite. So it was saying like, hey, Chicago gets hate, but here's why it's awesome for all these reasons. I've never been to Chicago. I need to go and check. Yeah, I know, because I heard it's actually gorgeous.
Close.
Good. I know, right? I could drive there.
It's like an hour flight.
Yeah. What's that?
Portillo's.
Yeah.
Is that a restaurant?
Yeah.
What is it?
They've got a lot of stuff. They're mainly known for their hot dogs.
Nice.
Yeah. But they also have Italian beef, which is another big Chicago food staple.
What is Italian beef?
It is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like thinly cut beef that's in a juice, and it's usually with, you serve it with a jardiniere, so it's got some heat to it.
Oh, nice.
And you usually just like soak them, you put it on a hoagie bun, and you soak it in the juice, and
oh, that sounds pretty good.
it's delicious.
Yeah, that sounds very Chicago.
Yes. Yes.
So what brought you to Nashville and when?
So I brought myself to Nashville.
Nice.
I just was ready for a change. Born and raised in Chicago. I went to California for school. Went to school in San Diego, and I loved it. But I graduated during the recession in 2007, or right at the start of it. And so it was really hard to find work. And so my dad was like, you know what? He's like, I've been working in the city for 31 years. Like, just come home. Like, I'll help you find a job.
Yeah.
And so moved home thinking it would be temporary. long story short, wound up buying my first house by Wrigley Field and stayed for 11 years. I loved it. I fell back in love with the city.
Yeah.
And I would always joke that I would move if the Cubs won the World Series because at that point I felt like I had seen and done it all in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then the Cubs freaking won the World Series, and I was like, "You're kidding me!"
Like, called your bluff.
Yeah, I'm like over 100 years of not doing it, and they did it. So
you thought you were safe. You're gonna be in Chicago forever,
right? And I was like, "Wow, if that's not a sign like that, I'm meant to go somewhere else and explore something else. Like, I don't know what it is,
right?
You know." And so, yeah, I had been eyeing Nashville for a while. I'd been coming down here on the weekends with friends. Again, since it's such a quick flight, and back in the day it was super cheap.
Yeah.
And I worked for a hotel company, so I could get super
free
discounted hotel rates. Yeah. Not free, but almost.
But good. Yeah, so you can come down here for, a couple $100 maybe, including the flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just was like, I should move to Nashville.
And what year was that?
2018 was when I finally made the move.
Okay.
But I had been wanting to do that probably since like 2015.
I know a lot of people from Illinois that moved to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty common? Like when you're, at least for, where I grew up, it was like move to Charlotte, North Carolina, or the beach, right? It was like that good enough distance to where it was away from where you grew up. Is Nashville a spot for a lot of Chicago folks to kind of move to? Or
yeah, I think the consensus from what I hear, because actually a lot of my friends have now moved down here too from Chicago, so we have our whole little community that we had up there is now down here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but the consensus from what I've heard and what I've experienced myself is yes, we're still close enough to home that if we still have family up there, we can get up pretty easily, whether we drive or fly.
Nice.
The other thing is that Nashville just has so much to offer in terms of like outdoor activities.
Mm-hmm.
When you're living in Chicago, first of all, you maybe get 3 months out of the year that are like nice weather to like be outside and enjoy yourself.
Soak it in.
So, you don't get out as much in nature. It's also, you have to drive farther to get to hiking.
Anything that you want to do.
Yeah. So
otherwise you're just eating Italian beef and drinking.
Yeah, eating and drinking. Well, I was also there in my 20s, so in general, it was just a lot of eating and drinking.
That's right.
But yeah.
Not a bad time.
Yeah.
In moderation.
Right. So, I mean, it was a great city for my 20s. I absolutely loved my life there. It was very hard to leave, but I just, was feeling a pull to explore somewhere else. And, I'm a very active person. I like to be outside a lot. And so overall, the climate down here was more attractive to me, not having such long winters, not having such intense winters. We used to call it Siberia because it would get so bad. And I just was over it.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. I totally get that. And you held yourself accountable. You said, if Cubs win, I'm out. I love that.
Doing it, yeah.
So did you come down and immediately start working as a realtor, or what was that process like?
Yeah, so when I came down, so prior to being in real estate, I was with Marriott Hotels for 12 years.
Okay.
And at the point, I say in 2015 was probably when I started thinking about moving to Nashville, but it didn't happen until 2018 because that was when I finally had a job where I could work remotely with the company and not be tied to an office in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
So, So, when I got that role, I had asked them if they minded if I moved to Nashville, and they said, honestly, as long as you're near an airport, we don't care where you live. So,
well, there's one near, so we're good. Let's go.
So it worked out. And I was able to move myself down here.
Nice. So 3 years working with Marriott when you moved here. And then what caused the kind of transition over to real estate?
The pandemic.
I
think it caused...
What are you referring to?
I think it caused a lot of people to pivot. So obviously, yes, the pandemic rocked the hotel world and really shut things down for quite a while for hotels. And, initially I was furloughed with the promise of getting my job back. And as that continued to get pushed out, I was like, this is not looking good. I need to come up with a plan B.
Yeah.
And my husband was actually the one who reminded me. He's like, ever since I met you, you've always talked about wanting to get your real estate license. He's like, well, now's your chance. He's like, get it. He's like, if you get your job back, great. You could do it. You can have your license and do it part-time if you want. And if you don't get your job back, do real estate full time. See what you think. Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. I was like, you're a genius. But I think for a lot of us who are coming from, again, 12 years as a paid employee with a steady paycheck, a salary, it was very scary to think about going into business for myself.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a complete leap.
Yeah.
And there's so many uncertainties. Add on COVID for you at that time. You're like, shoot, I don't know where this market's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen. I've got to just take the leap and go. We were talking to, Bob Wren, Redbox Dumpsters. Yeah. He was in here last night, and we were doing a podcast with him, and he was talking about the same thing, which is like that leap of faith. And he'll get into tears talking about it because
I will never forget his presentation when he did get into tears.
Yes,
and
you
I was
were there.
In the room,
yes.
And I was right there with him because I felt everything, like all of his emotion. I was like, I feel that too.
Yes. Okay, good.
So.
All right. Well, so let's talk about that because I don't want to paint it too negative because I think if there's a future entrepreneur listening to this and they're like, well, everybody's crying because this shit's so scary. I'm not gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about when you pulled the trigger. What was the first month like? What was the first couple of things you did in order to okay, let's turn this into a business and not just a hobby or a thing I'm gonna do on the side for a little bit?
Yeah.
Got the license. Right?
I'm sorry?
Got the license.
Got the license.
Check.
Yes. Yep.
After that.
So after that, it was really embracing learning. I'm brand new at this.
Yep.
I've got a lot to learn. And when you're new, you don't really have any clients yet. So it's like, okay, let's just, spend as much time as I can learning everything that I can, shadowing other agents, going in, getting involved in associations like Greater Nashville Realtors, getting involved with, other realtor groups, really my brokerage, and just immersing myself as much as possible was kind of where I started. And then from there, it was, making sure that people understood my new role, my new job, because for 12 years, again, people knew I worked for Marriott.
Right.
So you have to start retraining what people, think when they see you.
Right. That's very important for a realtor too.
Yeah.
Because that's your kind of blood source, right? That's your referral source, your network. If they know that you're doing that, they can be that referral for you.
Right. So it was a lot of, in this day and age, social media and making sure that I was, putting that image out on social media that hey, I do real estate now, and making sure that I'm posting about real estate, posting tips, posting educational moments, whatever,
making it your brand.
Exactly. And it takes time. It's like, I think the biggest thing, that I've always held with me is that when I was getting into this business, I interviewed other established realtors and asked for their advice, in getting started. And they all said, make sure you have 6 months to a year's worth of expenses saved up because you don't know when your first client is going to come. So you have to be prepared with some money on hand, to float yourself until you have a client or more. And then also they said, don't expect this to feel comfortable, from a confidence standpoint, from an income standpoint, expect it to take at least 3 to 5 years. So, it's like, okay, so immediately I put myself in that mindset of like, I'm in this for the long game. Like, this is not going to be, I'm getting in and I'm instantly making money. Like, I'm going to be in the trenches for at least 3 to 5 years, know, and it's going to be painful and it's going to suck a little, but it's also, I think it's really shown me what I'm capable of.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So
what's the biggest, when you say it's shown you what you're capable of, what's the main thing that kind of stands out there? What have you learned about yourself through that process of not only taking the leap, but then you've been in it for 4 years, 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
What's the big thing you've learned from the 4 years of just grind?
I'm thinking of a lot of things right now. It's shown me my determination and just my grit and staying with it.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you, if I'm being honest, how many times I cried my eyes out that first year.
Yep.
And I would constantly question, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, why did I do this? Should I get back into corporate? Like, what am I doing? You just have these freak out moments. Like, why did I do this? But, to have my own business now and to be my own boss and to be able to make my own schedule and decide who I get to work with, is really cool.
That what you said is so, so important. And I'm really happy you said it, because it comes up 90% of the time we have these conversations, which is the number one thing that's needed is just grit. Mm-hmm. And the other thing you said that I found really important for future real estate agents is you have to go into it knowing that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Mm-hmm. You have to treat it like a business.
Right.
Most businesses don't make a lot of money the first couple of years. Yeah. You're just really surviving. And if you really want to get into real estate, correct me if I'm wrong, if you go into it with that same attitude of, hey, this is a business, it's going to take me a couple of years to get this thing going. It's going to suck. I'm going to have to really do everything for a long time. Mm-hmm. You'll probably have a better success rate than most of the realtors that get into it.
Right.
It's like Eric Workman was in here, and he was talking about, it was either the first 3 or 4 years where he didn't have, and correct me on this lingo because I mess this up all the time, he didn't have anybody call him to sell their house. Is that a listing side?
Yeah.
So he didn't have anybody do that for the first 3 years, 4 years.
Right.
He was just like...
buyer's agent.
Yes, he was the buyer's agent. Yes.
Okay.
So like no one was calling him back. But then after that first 3 or 4 years, he had all those people that he served in the first couple of years.
Right.
Were moving or referring him and all that. And he was like, okay, that was the turning point for him where he started to see a little bit of like the fruits of his labors. Mm-hmm. That's so tough for people trying to get into this because you're like 4 years. Right. Maybe somebody's 23 or 4. And you're like, I gotta wait 4 years.
Right.
That's like a sixth of their life so far? That's a significant amount of time.
It takes a lot of patience and hard work and
okay, so you got through the first 4 years, basically through just grit and determination, saying I will not quit.
Yeah.
What was your first year like? Can you give some advice to future real estate agents in their first year? What's the big lesson that you learned, or maybe something you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
So it's funny you asked that because my first year was an anomaly because it was 2021.
So you killed it.
And I killed it my first year. And I was like, wow.
You're like, I would have a pandemic again.
I am meant to be a realtor.
Okay, so that's an interesting take because you had this entirely different outlook because you killed it.
Yeah.
So second year, what happened second year?
So that's where I learned the lesson.
Yeah. That's even tougher.
Yeah. So killed it my first year. Honestly, not really having to do much because so many people wanted to buy homes that, it did take a little while. I think my first 6 months, I didn't have any clients because I think it was still, getting my name out there and training people to rethink about what my profession is and what I do. Yep. So my first 6 months, I didn't have anybody. But once I got that first client, it was like the floodgates open. And I was getting calls, I want to buy a house in Nashville. I want to move to Nashville. Friends were referring their friends to me because they wanted to move to Nashville. So people who I hadn't talked to in years were calling me. And I was like, whoa, I'm like, good to catch up,
Right.
So it was really cool. But I did not put any processes in place to make myself successful for the second year. So what I mean by that is, I kind of just was reactive. I was just taking the calls, helping the clients, getting the deal done. But I wasn't proactively finding the next clients.
Gotcha.
And so that's what I really spent my second year doing was like figuring out like, okay, what systems and processes do I need to put into place and that feel good for me? Because it's got to feel good for you. People, I think for many entrepreneurs in many businesses, not just realtors, but they're going to give you all their advice and like, you should do this, you should do that. Like, this is what worked for me. It's going to work for you. But it's got to feel natural for you. And so that's kind of what I spent my second year doing, was figuring out what my processes were, what felt natural for me, and then putting them into action.
Okay, that's so good. That's why I'm smiling, because that's perfect. What are those processes that you ended up putting in place? Yeah. You know, if we can go in a little bit of detail on that, because if I'm the realtor that's in the first year struggling, I'm like, yes, what do I do now? What are those? What, you know, just as an example, right? It might not work for everybody, but what worked for you?
Yeah. So at a very base level, I mean, they're going to tell you when you get into real estate, you have to have a CRM, which I'm blanking on what that stands for, but it's
Customer Relationship Manager.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. And you know, I know I fell into this trap my first year in real estate. I'm like, well, I don't have that many clients. Like, I don't need to like invest in this yet.
I got a phone. I could just text them.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, that was not a good plan.
So for those new entrepreneurs, HubSpot has a very, very good free version that you can, I mean, for a new realtor, for the first 5 years, you could probably use this. I don't know how great it's going to be in real estate, but you know, we use it for some of just our lead pipeline, right? Okay. So that way we can track where people are and when we want to go back, you know, and contact them again and stuff like that. So, anyways, what did you end up doing? Did you end up investing in a CRM? Or?
Yeah, so my brokerage does provide one, and I tried to use it. It just, again, that was an example of it didn't feel natural for me. Yeah. It just wasn't clicking with me. And I got introduced to a business coach who is very big in the real estate market. His name is Brian Buffini. And he himself, he has a whole coaching platform now. He has a CRM that's called Referral Maker. And his CRM, just for me, it clicked. Like, nice. It just was very intuitive. I felt like I could maneuver through it very easily, and it just made sense for me. So they always say, like, use what works for you. And that is what worked for me, so I'm going with it.
Nice. So you stuck with it.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, you're exactly right. You know, maybe some people out there are like, hey, I got an Excel tracker that I use, and that works for me.
And some people do, yeah.
I think the main thing is, to your point, is just whatever you're able to be consistent with.
Right.
You need to track that stuff from day one and know that one person you just talked to, they're not a no, right? They might not be right now, but in 12, 15, 18, 2 years, they're there for you, right? And if you don't have their information, you can't reach back out, right? And there's so many tools now, cheap AI tools, that you can automate some of this stuff for you.
Right.
Right. So, okay, so you got your systems in place. The main one, it seems like, was just organizing your contacts, your lead stages, your clients, things like that, right?
Yeah, that. And then I've also, you know, really focused and been intentional about relationships and just loving on my people. You know, as a female in real estate, I don't feel super comfortable door knocking on random people's doors. Yeah. You never know. Especially in a state that allows guns and, you know.
You're just like, hey, I want to, oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be trespassing on someone's lawn. So I don't do that. And I did in the beginning, my first year, I tried, you know, buying leads and cold calling. And it never felt natural. It never felt good. Yep. And for some people it works, and that's great.
To your point,
it didn't work for me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, cold calling, I think if that's your thing, fine, but you better be prepared to make 1,000 calls a day.
Exactly.
And you get like maybe a one or two maybes.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
I think you can find a better way. I mean, but if that's your thing, that's your thing. But just know that you're in for the haul.
Exactly.
As far as
So
conversions.
So yeah, I've just been very intentional the past couple of years about just, you know, loving on my people, you know.
And when you say that, is that like your referral partners? Is that your clients? Is that everybody? What does that look like?
For everybody, I'm doing things like I'm really good at keeping track of everyone's birthdays, and I send them cards on their birthdays, or if a special moment, you know, we're all on social media all the time. If I see someone post like, I just got a new job or whatever, I'll send them a congratulatory card. Yep. And, you know, just little things like that. people don't expect it these days.
No,
and
they don't.
So it's just like a nice little touch. And I love doing it. Like, that's just part of my personality. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted to be good about sending my friends birthday cards. And like, now it's actually part of my job.
You're like, hell yeah, I love this.
So
you just put it in your phone when you find out their birthday, and then it just gives you a reminder?
Yeah, I have it in my calendar. I have it in that CRM, which also sends me a reminder.
Nice.
Mostly I try to keep it all in there, so I have clean records in there.
Nice. That's just it's such an easy way to differentiate yourself in a really crowded market.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of realtors, so
there are.
I imagine you guys' y'all's like main focus, at least mine would be, is like, okay, how do I make sure that I'm not only taking care of my current clients, but how am I just that much different in order to attract a new client, or in order to get an old client to refer me.
Right.
So something like that is easy. It's cheap. It's just your time and effort, which any new realtor can do.
Yeah. And then I host client appreciation events, so I'm about to have a little ice cream social get together.
Nice.
Yeah. And I had usually in the fall, I'll always get Thanksgiving pies for my clients' Thanksgiving tables. And last year what I did is I actually had them all over to my house, and we had like a little happy hour.
Oh, sweet.
And then they got to pick up their pies for Thanksgiving.
See, that's awesome. It's not expensive to do.
Yeah.
It's thoughtful. People love it. It's a good time. Okay, so first year, second year. What's your like next year's goals? What does that look like? What do you want to be at the end of this year, going into next year?
Yeah. So this year I've really focused on my involvement in the industry. So I am vice chair of the Young Professionals Network at Greater Nashville Realtors.
Nice.
I also was accepted into, they do a leadership program every year that you have to apply to. And I got accepted into that and got to go through that.
What does that come with? What do you have to do for that? It's
like 3 months of learning opportunities. Nice. Where we talk a lot about leadership traits. What does it mean to be a leader? But then we also get to meet with leaders of the city. So I got to meet with the Chamber of Commerce. I got to meet with the mayor. You get to experience these other aspects of life in Nashville that I feel like we don't always have exposure to.
Yeah.
And so it's been really interesting hearing, more about the mayor's transportation initiative, for example. And getting to understand how we as realtors help to impact, the change that we want to see in the city.
What is the transportation initiative? Because it needs some work.
God, I hope I don't botch this.
No, I mean, I'm kind of kidding, but I mean, actually interested. It's like, I've only been here for 5 years, but I've seen the traffic get absolutely horrible at any time of day. Yeah. So what's the initiative?
So basically,
the mayor's listening.
I hope not. No. In a nutshell, what I understand it to be is an investment in our bus system, in the technology that controls our traffic lights.
Oh, cool.
And in having a more robust like bike lane opportunities.
I read something about like the bike lane, sidewalks, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I think we kind of missed the boat for having some sort of like train system like Chicago and New York had. We missed the boat for that. But by ramping up the bus system, we're going to have more reliable public transit because, the complaint that seems to be popular right now is just that the buses, they're not consistent. Like they don't run very often. And so not a lot of people take them.
Right. And to me, like the bus system, I think it comes with like the stigma is it's not safe.
Right. That's the other piece of it. Yeah.
Right. And I would be encouraged if the stigma would change.
Right. And I think it all kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, it takes more people using the bus to make it not feel like this like dangerous experience.
But no one's going to use it if it feels like this dangerous experience. It's a hard problem to solve.
It's hard.
It's not unique to Nashville, obviously.
No, not at all. I mean, I lived in Chicago for 11 years. I took public transit all the time. And, and I would even take it. There's 2 train lines there that run 24 hours. And, and they're definitely, lines where, like, okay, I'm not going to ride this after midnight.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, I think it's going to take time, assuming that the referendum passes. It hasn't been voted on yet, but assuming that it passes, it would take time for that transition.
Okay, good. I'll sleep tonight now. So the leadership school we were just talking about, you finished that, and we were talking about your goals for the rest of this year.
Yes.
So what else do you have on the goal sheet?
Yes. So, what else do I?
Is there a number of houses you want? Do you think like that, or?
I know as a business owner, I should be thinking like that, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to control. I feel like, and especially in today's real estate atmosphere, just with interest rates being where they are at.
Yep.
A lot of it is outside of my control.
Yeah.
So I try to focus on what can I control. And what I can control is continuing to get my name out there, continuing to position myself as an expert in the market, and continuing to make those connections, which is why I started a BNI chapter.
Yep.
And just continue to make connections in the city, because at some point these rates are going to come down. And I know there are a lot of people out there who've been sitting on the sidelines waiting.
Yes.
And so it's going to get real busy at some point.
You just have your pipeline ready.
Yes. So
and they're going to come.
I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do so that, when the market shifts, I'm ready.
Keep networking, keep building those relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's the we'll go bad first, then good. So what's the worst aspect of real estate? What's the if you could change one aspect of the industry, whether that be customers or the process of selling the home or doing open houses, whatever it is, what's one aspect that you really don't enjoy, and how have you kind of taught yourself to just deal with it and do it because it's important type thing?
Yeah. A couple things come to mind, but I think the one that sticks out, a lot of people assume that it's the clients that are the problem.
That was my guess.
And it's really not. It's other realtors.
Really?
Yeah.
And so when you're in the negotiations, it's the other side, or is it just...
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be negotiations. I mean, it can be showings,
Right.
It's we joke about it, but it is also a thing. Like, especially during the pandemic, again, when houses were just like flying off the market, we would joke that like you couldn't get a hold of the listing agent.
Right.
Like we would call to ask questions and try to like figure out how to write a competitive offer, based on what the seller's looking for. And we just wouldn't get a call back, and as a buyer's agent, that's really frustrating because I'm like, I'm trying to help my client, you know, but and
that's out of your control too.
It is out of my control. And
your clients are like, what are we doing?
Right. Right. And so, and that's where I leverage just my knowledge of the industry and the market. And we try to make our best attempt as to, what's going to win the bid. But,
nice.
But yeah, so that was 21. And I mean, unfortunately, that season of real estate created some really bad habits for a lot of realtors. And so we still continue to see some of that in, people's behaviors. And so, I think with all that's going on in the real estate market right now, like we're going to start to see, those that are not perfecting their business acumen, kind of start to fall off. Yeah.
Yeah. And that actually supports all the trends of real estate agents throughout history.
Right.
Which is like, I think the average is 2 years in the industry. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So now what's your favorite part? Where's like kind of, do you have a passion side of this? And I say do you because I'm one of the believers where I don't think you necessarily need to have this immense passion for business. Like I think it probably helps, but I don't love to lean on that too much because there's a lot of people out there who don't have a passion for working.
Right.
And like you don't, that's okay.
I mean, if money could just flow to me,
then
that'd
would
be
I
great.
be doing it? No, right? I wouldn't be doing any of it. So I just had money.
Right.
So, So yeah, I mean, if it's passion, great. What's your passion about it? If it's not, what's the thing you really love about, or the part of your job that brings you some joy?
Yeah. So, my passion in this industry is education, and everybody says helping people, and yes, I love helping people. I mean, heck, I was in hospitality for 12 years.
Yep.
Like, I love serving people. But I would say, to narrow that down, it's in education. I think that there is a lot people either don't know or don't understand about real estate. I mean, that's how I was when I bought my first house. Okay. I didn't know what I was doing, and I kind of just relied on my parents to tell me, like, hey, do this, not that, Yeah. But I didn't understand the why behind it. I didn't understand the paperwork I was signing, I just went through the motions because they told me to do those things,
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for people to understand the why behind, this certain parts of the process, to understand the process in general, what to expect when you're buying a home.
Yep.
And I think it helps them feel more empowered when they are going through it, so that they can feel confident in the decision they've made, because it's the biggest purchase you're probably going to make in your life. So, so I want people to feel confident about what they're buying.
And that's throughout the entire buying process, not just in selecting the home, but really that's kind of the fun part. And then the scary unknown part comes, right? Which is like all the paperwork, dealing with the mortgage, right. And then there's the title, and you're in there signing a million pieces of paper. Like, yeah. Should I be reading this? Should I not be reading?
Right.
There's so many unknowns.
Right.
So do you kind of carry through that? How do you make sure the client feels comfortable throughout the entire process until keys are in hand and all that stuff?
So that is one thing I would say that differentiates me from some of the other, realtors in the business, especially ones with larger teams. I'm with them the whole way through the process.
Nice.
So I'm not, I'm not handing my buyers off to a buyer's agent. I am their agent. I'm not handing them off to a transaction coordinator once we are under contract. I am doing their paperwork. I am the one, still communicating with them, still helping to schedule, inspections and whatnot. I mean, I let them, pick what vendor they want to use, but I will help them schedule it and get everything lined up. I go with them to the inspection. When the appraisal comes in, that's something that actually the client owns, and they have to choose to share it with me. But pretty much everybody does, because then right. I can talk them through it and explain, if they have any questions about their appraisal, we can talk through it together.
Nice.
So
you're really there throughout the whole, that's comforting for a lot, especially first-time buyers. That's
right.
huge.
Right.
What is now the process after buying, right? So do you get the calls 6 months later? Hey, who do you use for this? Who do you use for that? How does that play out in your world?
Yeah. So that, again, comes with, to me, it's loving on my people. Like, I'm not just loving on them to try to get clients. I'm not just loving on them through the transaction. I'm loving on them indefinitely.
Right.
Like, they pretty much have to tell me to stop loving on them
right.
if they want me to go away. Yeah. So, I had an event last weekend where I invited, clients and friends of mine out to go hiking, and nice. So I'm like, I want to hang out with you. Like, I've been very lucky in that everyone that I've worked with, I've truly enjoyed spending time with. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I love, doing things like this and getting us together. And so, yes, to your question, I do get those calls when they have a problem with the home. They're like, well, let me ask Brittany, what, do you know a roofer? Or do you know a remediation company or whatever? Yep. And so that's why.
That's part of your process too.
Right. And so it's very important to me to have a trusted, Rolodex of people that I know in different industries that I can help my clients connect with.
Okay. So this is a question, because what MyHome's trying to do is, obviously we are a marketplace built for the homeowner, mm-hmm. right? So what we really are is, our big differentiators, we're essentially Carfax for your home.
Okay.
Where you're a marketplace where you can find, schedule, pay, and communicate all your different vendors, right? So what we've found over the last 18 months and talking to homeowners is they have 4 major pain points when it comes to their vendors, which is paying them. It's fragmented, so they have to pay their lawn guy here, pest control here, HVAC here. It's not a single spot. Communicating and scheduling is kind of all over the place for them. And then finding quality vendors is the 4th one. So what MyHome's done is it really solved all those pain points for the homeowner.
Right.
What we would love, and this is like selfish on us, is, we obviously want to scale this nationwide in the next 2 to 3 years. First, we got to launch in Nashville, right? So first we got to get into as many homeowners as possible. A referral source we think is valuable, but we're trying to figure out how to make it perfectly valuable, is realtors, right? Because we know that y'all are selling to people who are coming from out of state. They don't have these relationships established already, and they're probably needing them.
Right.
So it would be we think a unique way to say, hey, look, this app is not only local for now, but they're invite only for their vendors. So they have the highest quality vendors. So you can guarantee you're getting somebody really, really good. But also, anything you need's on here. And then what we've decided to do for the realtor that refers it is within the app, there's a messaging side of it where they can message vendors. And we've pinned like your information to the very top of it. So for anybody that you would recommend the app to, anytime they use it, they see your name. Gotcha. Right. So on top of all your touch points that you're doing naturally anyways, they're using this separate app to get their lawn cut, to hire handyman, to hire HVAC people. Nice. And they're still kind of seeing you in it.
Right.
Because what we learned is we don't want to take that, to your point, we don't want to take that touch point from you. Because that is a huge part of it. But if we could provide it at no additional energy or cost to the realtor, we think there's maybe some value there. Yeah. Is there anything else that we could do in that scenario? Like, how can we be more valuable to y'all as realtors? I know that's putting you on the spot, but
yeah, that is a tough question.
What's your biggest pain point after the sell? That's where we want to get involved. Like, what's when it deals with clients? Are you is there something that comes to mind? Is it touch points? Is it answering those questions? Is it or maybe you just got a perfect business and there's
perfect business. No. Yeah, I can't say that I have a lot of pain points other than, kind of to what you said when you interviewed people about what their pain points are with the, home service industry. And the 2 biggest things that come to mind for me and that I experience as well is the communication. And, not just the communication in setting up an appointment, but the communication through the process of whatever the project is.
Gotcha. So of a handyman or of a home inspection or.
Right. Or, what I hear a lot, it especially comes with like general contractors and remodeling because those tend to be longer projects. And, I was just hearing, not a client of mine, actually a colleague of mine was complaining about the first general contractor she hired. He kind of just started doing things even though she didn't approve it. And then he's like sliding the bill across the table and she's like, wait, I didn't tell you to do this. Like, yikes. Where was the conversation, Right. And so I think that a lot of the frustration and the pain points come from just a lack of communication.
Yeah, and I think that narrows down to lack of quality, right?
Right. And that's the other piece is just having quality people to do the job.
Yeah, and like that, and that's something we're really focused on, which is why we wanted to be invite only.
And how does one get an invite? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. Either from a referral from somebody that's already on the platform and been accepted onto the platform. They can always go on our website and apply. It takes like 5 to 7 minutes. And then we'll check it out, right? And we'll look at them and check them out. We've got a couple, and it's not incredibly difficult, but what it does is it prevents the 80% of the BS in these industries.
Right.
Right. We want that 20% of greatness.
Yeah.
People like Bob Wren, people like CJ Welch from One Day Painting. We want those guys and those owners on our platform to take care of our users.
Right.
Have to have a COI. Have to have W-9, have to have a website and Google ratings, just things that mean, hey, I'm in, right? Which is difficult in some of these industries because it's a lot of them, especially, and this is what you're going to find like an Angie or a Thumbtack, is gig work, right? It's guys that have a lawnmower that also want to, change your ceiling fan.
Yeah.
And that's where you get into trouble with quality.
Right.
So that's not us at all. And if that's who you're looking for, we're probably not your company.
Sure.
But I think to your point there is if you deal with the quality issue first and foremost, I think it solves a lot of the other issues too. Okay. So, that's interesting. Cause we want to be in front of as many realtors as we can. But knowing that, we're trying to really incentivize the, hey, use this,
right.
use this. So just trying to dig into different realtors' pain points. The hard part is similar to home services. Everybody has their own flavor, right? Everybody has their own. There's a lot of realtors that don't want to take that phone call of, do you know a good plumber?
Right.
For them, they're like, oh, maybe they don't love their clients as much, right? Which we're cool with. We'll love on them,
Yeah.
So I appreciate the feedback on that. That's good.
Yeah. So, I guess I don't really have an answer for you. I'd have to think about it a little bit more on working with realtors. I love the idea of the fact that, our name and our information would still be present in the app. And because I think anytime clients are reminded of us is helpful.
That's right. Especially if they had a positive experience.
Exactly. Especially if they've had
it was negative. They're like,
then maybe don't put my name there. But
you just tell us. You say, just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We'll pin it to the top or not.
Yeah. Well, usually I guess if I'm the one referring them, then hopefully it's a good experience.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Is there anything else you want potential clients to know, or just homeowners in general? What's I'll give you an example. So in restoration, I always say that I wish people would have known that time's not on their side, right? If you have a water loss, you need to get a company in. Didn't matter who, just get somebody in to start doing the work.
Right.
Because time makes it worse. Insurance company, whatever, it gets really nasty.
Yeah.
Just get it done. Is there something like that in your industry that you just want homeowners to know prior to them making a decision on a realtor, or to even go into real estate if they want to be an entrepreneur, or in just buying and selling a home?
The first thing that came to mind when you mentioned that was just in general, when it comes to buying and selling a home, I think so many people, again, coming back to the interest rates, so many people try to time the market and when's the best time to buy, or when's the best time to sell? And it's not. There's no best time.
Right.
I mean, sure, back when rates were 2.9, 3%, that was a great time. However, on the flip side of that, it's a double-edged sword with all of it. Yeah. So the rates were super low, but then that's when we were seeing people offering $50,000, $100,000 over asking,
Cash.
So, right, cash. And even in the $1 million price point, people were making cash offers. I mean, it was just blowing my mind.
Yeah, you're like, who are you?
So it's a double-edged sword. It's you get a low rate, but then you're fighting tooth and nail just to get a house.
Right.
So, and a lot of people got so fed up with it that they didn't even buy a house. They're like, we're just going to wait.
And now they're like, when the rate's going down.
Yeah. And so it's kind of, what I always say is don't try to time the market. Yep. Just when you're ready, let's look. Let's go, when you feel financially ready to buy a house, let's go find you a house. It may not be your forever house. It might have to be your first house.
Right.
And gets you in the door of building that financial foundation, because ultimately your first house is going to help fund your second house, your third house. Ultimately, it's going to help fund that dream house. So
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So it's there's so many first-time home buyers sitting out there, because, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but the average age of the first-time home buyer is 36 years old. So, yeah. So for people who think that, they've missed it, or they're too old to be a first-time, no, there is no such thing.
Wow.
The average age is 36.
Damn.
Yeah.
How old were you when you bought your first house?
23.
Oh, so yeah,
but
you're way ahead.
I had a little family help with the down payment. So, but
That's okay.
I covered the mortgage myself.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
I had a roommate to help me pay the mortgage.
There you go. You made it happen.
So I made it work.
Did you make some money on the sale of that house?
Not much, because the Chicago market is just different.
Okay.
So real estate prices where I was already in a very established neighborhood. They hadn't changed a ton since the time I bought. And then just when you factor in what I invested into improvements in the property, it kind of like evened out.
Nice.
So, but it's, it's fine. It still helped. The money from that sale still helped for my husband and I to buy a house here in Nashville. Yep. So, it all works out. And, with real estate in Nashville, our housing prices are going to continue to go up.
My God.
I mean,
are you guys in the same house you bought when you moved here?
No, so I rented actually when I first moved here.
Nice.
I won't even get into this story because it's a long one, but basically we wrote a contract on a new construction home in 2021 and did not get to close on it until November of 2023. So it was,
yikes.
And in that time, the rates doubled.
So you guys just moved in then?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, what a bummer, dude.
But what I will say, the silver lining is that in those 2 years, the value of our home has already gone up $150,000.
There you go.
So,
boom.
But that's Nashville real estate. So that's why I say there's no timing the market. Like, if you are financially ready, don't worry about the interest rate. Like, let's go find you a home.
Yep.
And just go in with the mindset that, like, hey, this probably isn't going to be my forever home. And, the other piece of it is, you can always refinance when the rates come down.
I was going to say the same thing.
So, I mean, we're going to do that. Like, our rate sucks right now.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the downside to having a really good rate is like, and I don't know enough about this, so I may be stupid right now, but we've got like a 275 on our Clarksville house.
Nice.
And like a 3.5 on our Nashville house.
Okay.
And if we were to like try to pull out any equity to like use it, we'd have to refi at a 7%.
Yep.
So it's like, sure, we got a ton of equity, but we're not going to see any of that money unless we sell it.
Right.
And we don't want to sell it because we got a renter in it. It's a really good deal.
Right.
So it's like, kind of like, you can't really touch it. I mean, it's great, but, you know.
So that's why, like, you just, I don't know. I don't think it's so much of a timing thing as to, it's more of like what's the right time for you and what's the right thing for you, and with the sale, it's like, sometimes you just need to sell the house. Like, and it doesn't matter, is the market hot, is it not? Like, you got to sell the house.
You got to make it happen. That's right.
So,
that's exactly right.
I mean, that was my
being on the street.
Chicago condo. Like, I did not want to manage a rental from Nashville. So I was like, I got to sell this house. And the building was starting to get older. There was starting to be a lot more maintenance issues. And I was like, I can't manage this from Nashville.
Nope.
So.
Yep. That's a pain.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really, really fun. Thank you for your time. You've been really generous with it. I will say that I have been a personal witness to your grind, and I respect it as a fellow networker, and I know how draining that is. I've seen you everywhere and anywhere grinding, and you're always a pleasure. So thank you so much for coming in. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It's mutual. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.